Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm going to review for you all the new Paula'S Choice Niacinamide 20% treatment. I got several requests from you guys to review this. And this product actually was sent to me as PR from Paula'S Choice. So do know that I didn't pay for it. It was sent to me as a gift, but under no obligation am I to talk about it or anything. But you all wanted to hear about it, so. Anyways, niacinamide is obviously the star ingredient in this product, and you all know that I enjoy using niacinamide in my moisturizers, or having it there at least, and I've talked about its benefits in other videos before. In fact, I have a dedicated video on niacinamide. For those of you who missed that video, niacinamide also goes by the name vitamin B3. Vitamin B3 or niacinamide is actually a precursor to NAD, and this is a critical ingredient or component, if you will, of something called DNA damage repair. When our skin is exposed to ultraviolet radiation, one of the main things that happens, among many, is that it's damaging to the DNA in our skin cells. And that damage, if it doesn't get repaired, that can actually set the stage for skin cancers down the road. And there is some interest and compelling research to suggest that topical application of niacinamide might be helpful in kind of boosting up the skin's ability to fight off UV damage, in a sense. Not a replacement for sunscreen, but used alongside sunscreen, it's compelling. There was an 8-week randomized placebo-controlled study, actually of only 30 people. But in this study, they looked at 4% niacinamide for reducing some of the visible signs of photoaging, namely wrinkles, skin roughness. They showed at the end of the study, at the end of the 8 weeks, there was a statistically significant improvement in wrinkles and skin smoothness and overall signs of photoaging using 4% niacinamide applied to the skin versus nothing. So that actually seemed to be compelling, that this might help in mitigating some of the damage from ultraviolet radiation. I've mentioned in other videos that niacinamide can also be helpful for redness, and when it comes to sun exposure, topical application of niacinamide has been shown to reduce the amount of redness or erythema induced by exposure of the skin to ultraviolet radiation. That is one of the most obvious signs of skin damage from ultraviolet radiation is redness. In one study, a 5% topical niacinamide applied to the skin for, I believe, 4 weeks. Yeah, 4 weeks showed visible reduction in barely perceptible erythema with irradiation, with ultraviolet radiation on the skin. So it suggests that at least at 5% strength, you can get some reduction in UV-mediated redness and damage in the skin. Niacinamide is also marketed frequently for conditions of hyperpigmentation, and I've talked about it in that vein as well. Specifically, there was a study that looked at both 5% niacinamide and 2% niacinamide versus vehicle. And this was a really nice study in that they had the participants apply either concentration of niacinamide versus just vehicle alone. And by vehicle alone, I mean the same cream without niacinamide. They had the subjects do that for 8 weeks. At the end of the 8 weeks, they examined their skin for some signs of hyperpigmentation, and then they had them stop the niacinamide, and they looked at those same measures again at 42 weeks. So they stopped the niacinamide at 8 weeks, and then they were re-examined at 42 weeks. At 8 weeks, there was a marked reduction in hyperpigmentation with the niacinamide in comparison to vehicle alone when they looked just at 8 weeks. Both the niacinamide groups showed a statistical improvement in hyperpigmentation. However, that improvement was dose dependent. The 5% group was better than the 2% group, but both got better, and both got better over the placebo. After they stopped, however, at 8 weeks, and then they were re-examined again at 42 weeks with that washout period, that effect was lost, and they looked just the same as though they had used the vehicle. In other words, it suggests that in order to you have to continue using niacinamide in order to maintain the skin brightening effects or improvement in hyperpigmentation. It's thought that niacinamide works to improve hyperpigmentation by interfering with kind of how pigment gets transferred around in the melanocyte, the skin cell that makes pigment. It's a structure called a melanosome. Niacinamide is kind of thought to interfere with how that traffics around and whatnot, and may be why you see a brightening effect. It's also been examined in patients with melasma. Specifically, there was a study looking at the application of either 4% niacinamide versus 4% hydroquinone, which is kind of the standard of care ingredient for melasma, 4% hydroquinone. They compared the two. And they looked, the participants in this study though, they've applied either 4% niacinamide or 4% hydroquinone every 3 hours, that's intense, for 8 weeks. At the end of the study, individuals with melasma who applied the 4% niacinamide overall showed a 44% improvement in their melasma versus hydroquinone. It was a little bit greater at 55%. So hydroquinone is still better, but hey, 44%, that's pretty good. So it's a compelling ingredient for melasma, but not a substitute for hydroquinone. All right, so I blabbed on and on about niacinamide to remind you guys of some of its some of the beneficial things that it can do for the skin, or seems to potentially do for the skin. What about Paula'S Choice 20% niacinamide treatment? This is marketed as a highly concentrated niacinamide serum that you're supposed to just use a few drops on your skin underneath your other products in the morning and in the evening. And here's my issue with this product. The studies I just mentioned and everything else out there in the literature about topical application of niacinamide, the highest percentage in these studies is 5%. And I believe that this product is kind of falling under that fallacy that higher concentration is better. And we know, I mean, in medicine and in pharmacology, higher concentration does not always mean better or more effective. Some active ingredients, they become super saturated, and just merely going higher actually may make them less effective than lower percentages. And is that the case with niacinamide? Is 20% too high? I don't know, because no one's really ever looked at that concentration, 20%. It's really high, but I'm suspicious that it might be too high to exert any effect. You know, one of the things that can happen, if things are too concentrated, they can precipitate out and kind of clump together and not be evenly distributed when you put them on the skin. So that's a major issue that I have with this product. Not to mention, oftentimes, the higher the percentage that you go, the higher you go, the more likely an ingredient is to cause irritation and problems for people. So without data to say that 20% works, that 20% is necessarily better than the lower percentages, I have reservations recommending this product to you guys. Not only that, this product is $48, which is pretty expensive. You know, most moisturizers that you might use on your face or on your body, if you look very carefully, a lot of them have niacinamide in it. And, you know, so long as you're using a moisturizer with it, you're likely deriving benefit from niacinamide. It's not a guarantee that you are, but you know, you're likely. Do you need to go out and buy this 20% $48 serum? I don't have a lot of confidence to recommend that you guys do that, if that makes sense. Pretty expensive, and there's no real data to show that 20% works. And then, you know, the other issue is that niacinamide is a cosmeceutical ingredient. So while we've got some compelling information from laboratory and small clinical studies to suggest these benefits, it's something that is in cosmetics, non-drug products. So the FDA doesn't regulate the manufacturing of those in the same way that they do drugs, meaning that Paula'S Choice has no onus to show that the 20% that they put in this is even available for your skin, that it hasn't all just clumped out in the bottom of the bottle. You know, it's not just a big clump in the center. So it's a bit of a shot in the dark, and I would say, you know, niacinamide at lower percentages can be irritating. A lot of you guys find that to be the case who use CeraVe and whatnot. So this might be more irritating for you, or it may just all be clumped together and be less irritating for you, or you may have no issue with it. This product has some other good ingredients in it though for the skin. It has licorice root, which can be anti-inflammatory. It's been shown to be helpful in calming down inflammation in people with eczema, and it can be helpful for improving redness and hyperpigmentation as well, modestly. And what else does it have? Oh, it has green tea, EGCG, a polyphenol that can help in scavenging free radicals as well. And it's free of added fragrance. I don't think it's necessarily a bad product, but I think you've got to be careful with marketing like this about, trying to sell you on a higher percentage. That can actually be misleading. Take for example benzoyl peroxide, the active over-the-counter acne ingredient. We know that higher percentages of benzoyl peroxide are not necessarily more effective at helping acne than lower percentages. However, higher percentages come with a lot more irritation. And so that's why, going with a lower percentage in benzoyl peroxide tends to serve people better. And I can't say that with niacinamide because it hasn't been examined, but I'm suspicious that 20% might be overkill. I see also other products that have 10% niacinamide. Really, the studies that we have, very small, and they've all used concentrations of like 4 and 5%. And so I think going higher may not necessarily get you better results. It may get you just a product that is not effective. Yeah, that's what I can tell you about the 20% niacinamide serum. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. Comment below, those of you who have used this product, what your experience was with it or is. I'd love to know. But if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.